Okay, you'll be purchasing, a bulk pack. So whatever you'd buy that.
What do all
You're
those prices mean? That look confusing.
okay. So this is all based upon a $99 value here. So this guy costs 149. This guy costs 199, 299, 649, and 999. Okay, the 10 pack is just $99. Okay, so you purchase one of those, and what you'll get then is a couple of things. You'll get a registration email, but you'll need an account to log into our website. So you do need to follow that link there to set up that account. If you don't follow that link, you won't be able to log in to download the tool.
Yeah, I know we've
Uh,
had some tickets recently where people did not use the registration link to create their account, and then they weren't able to
mhm.
get logged into the product fulfillment.
Yeah, and the thing is, it'll sort of know that you're in there, and so it'll allow you to like do a password reset at that point and do and other things that might make you think that is working, but it is not unless you follow that registration link. So please do that, and then once you get to our website, otherwise you'll want to follow the link in your purchase email to take you to the purchase center, but you can go to that. Here, it's going to be a specific one for you. It's going to be the bulk resale purchase center, and that's what'll be linked in your purchase email. And download the configurator. I've already done that, but that's what you'll want to do. So I have a copy of it here. You'll open that up, and you'll just extract it to a random folder. And whoa. Okay, and so this is what you get. Now, you want to create a new installer. It's probably going to be your first step. Give it a name. Do not name it anything, even at all similar to what your company name is. So, for instance, Test 123 would be acceptable. ABC Company Limited would not be acceptable. Okay, so we'll just go Michael's. I don't know, Michael's. Okay, I don't know. Don't even put in the weird punctuation in that either. So, okay, once you do that, you get this screen. You'll see your config name there at the top, and this looks very much like the advanced configuration under CryptoPrevent. In fact, all of the options on this page are essentially duplicated in the advanced configuration in the actual CryptoPrevent client. So honestly, these should be somewhat familiar to anybody that's used CryptoPrevent and set it up in that manner before. But we also have a lot of other additional things, and I'll go through each tab one by one, including the stuff at the top.
So if you wanted to test out the various protection levels you're about to set, what would you recommend?
If you're about to test out, so what I would recommend before you even go through this process, preferably before you even purchase, but you should download the free version of CryptoPrevent and test with that to see if the settings are going to work for you. As far as what's under here, you may not understand the implications of any of these checkboxes, for instance, but there's a really easy way to figure out if it'll pose a problem in your particular environment. You can run CryptoPrevent and the free version, and it logs all of its activity in its alerts, and you can use that information to determine what's going on. We can assist you with potentially working through it if you provide us with that information. And yeah, and that's a great way to try it all out. So getting back to the submission and going over the options, we'll you'll want to fill out everything, and including your product key. Make sure you type it. You're going to be delivered a product key that's going to have hyphens in it. There's a space before and after each hyphen. So
usually you want to copy and paste that from the product key email you get.
I'm just gonna again just give an example, but it should look like this with the space before and after each hyphen. Copy and pasting is great. Do not include a space before the first character. So do not do something like that, and do not do something like that, having a space at the end. The number of licenses purchased or requested, this is just to help us verify and locate your purchase, but we will always be fulfilling it for the number that you've purchased.
Well, there are scenarios where you would want to have a different number there. So, say if you bought a 250 pack and you wanted 50 to go to one division or company, and then another 100 to go to a different one, and then another 100 to go to a different one, you could create those 3 different configs. So if each one had different email settings, you would create 3 different configs with the names that we started off with in the beginning, and then submit all 3 of those with the different number that you want on that installer. But it is good to note that you get 1 installer with your bulk license purchase, and then each additional installer is a $25.
Yeah, so you'll note that text right above there. Yeah, there are situations where you might have a different number here, but in many cases it's going to be what you purchase. But regardless, put what you would like there. Just also note that on unlimited installers, you do not get the ability to have your licenses, so you can't have dole out licenses in individual quantities if you purchase like that. Now, this notes field is basically gets read by a technician fulfilling your request, your build request. So if you put something like, say, I need to combine these licenses onto another key or something like that, we'll be able to interpret that and act on it. So we do have requests from time to time to combine licenses with the previous purchase. The information we need to make that happen is basically just the product keys of the previous purchase, and what we'll do is we'll typically add those keys to the one you're submitting, and that would be maybe a way that you could communicate that. You could always also write us an email, of course, and request that. Any other way you can get in touch with us, we'll be happy to do it. But the notes field is convenient, and it's right here for you. And the reason we put it there is to facilitate that type of communication. So anything you want to tell us there, feel free. Now, this first tab at the bottom is going to have just basically controls the behavior of the installation and the creation of the shortcuts. So it's pretty self-explanatory whether or not to restart, and the creation of the various shortcuts. So keep that in mind. We've had some users request that they want to know how to disable accessing CryptoPrevent. While we don't have anything built into CryptoPrevent to prevent it from being run by a user on a system, it does require admin privileges, so that will maybe prevent your users from running it. But we can also just disable the shortcuts, and CryptoPrevent really isn't noticeable when it's running. Not creating the shortcut will make it particularly difficult for someone to know that it's there and know where to go to access it. Then the software restriction policies tab. And this is, again, a duplication of what's inside the CryptoPrevent advanced options. This basically, use protected locations are locations where CryptoPrevent will prevent the execution of executables from. So if your programs require that an executable be run from one of these locations, there's going to be difficulty. But typically these are safe. The ones here at the top to block, they don't typically have any side effects. There is one instance that I know of, and I believe that's in the case of Spotify, where the default level, which is basically these block locations at the top, it'll prevent it from running. Down in the middle here, we have the blocking the execution of various files that sometimes ransomware likes to run, particularly to, in the case of the VSS admin, to delete shadow copies, and you can usually typically safely block those things. But if you have a server, you may not want to block VSS admin. And I actually did have a case of somebody needing Cipher as well, so keep that in mind. These misprojections at the bottom are also considered to be safe. They don't typically cause problems for anyone, so I recommend those generally probably be left alone there. The ones on the right all do have consequences to enabling, so you got to keep these in mind. Many of these or the top one, excuse me, the bottom one. The bottom one will have the most impact. It will typically block the installation of program updates and program installations. So keep that in mind for that one. BCD edit may prevent backup applications from working correctly, possibly. There's a legitimate circumstance where that might be an issue for you. And then this one here, I think this one's pretty safe, but it basically just prevents the execution. If you open up a zip file and double clicked on it, it would basically prevent the execution of that. I don't think it's a good idea to have an executable just randomly extracted from a zip. If you want to access it legitimately, I believe you should just unzip it first and then launch it. But keep that in mind. So I think that covers all those options. Okay, so the whitelist. Now, note that most people will be concerned, that they'll have to develop an extensive whitelist before deployment. That's not the case. This option at the top here, we're already, by default, at least if you leave this checked, we'll be whitelisting everything on the computer that CryptoPrevent is installed onto. So the hope and the design is that it's not going to prevent anything from running that's currently on your system. This also means that you have to be absolutely sure that the computer you're deploying to is not already infected. Obviously, you don't want to whitelist malicious software, and CryptoPrevent is not going to be effective in those cases. So you'll need to take care of that prior to deployment. But we typically don't really see the need for most customers or to we don't have them. Many of them have to provide a whitelist in advance to us. But if you are aware of an application that may be pushed out to your users after the deployment of CryptoPrevent, that would be a case certainly where you would want to stick it on there. And it's I know it seems like this would open up a page, but it's I don't think it actually. Yeah, it doesn't actually tell you how to. It doesn't link. It doesn't link correctly. But the whitelisting is easy. It's path rules. You can use even like that, for instance, there, but it's one per line, and it needs. It can't have any wildcards in it, but it can have, as I said, the environment variables. The variables there to point to various locations, and they're basically the same as you'll see here, these variables here. So you can do that. Let's see, under the filter module protections, this is just relating to the filter module. Keep that in mind, particularly for the options here to the right. They're only relevant to the filter module. So the filter module typically will. I don't recommend the beta, by the way. There's a significant incompatibility with modern versions of Microsoft Office, at least 2013 and beyond, including Office 365. Their click-to-run technology will be prevented if you do that. There is a workaround in the sense you can launch it with administrative privileges and get around it, but I believe it's probably gonna cause too many problems to effectively leave enabled, unless you are deploying to an office with maybe a client with Office 2010. It would be acceptable in those cases. We do the checking of CPL, SCR, and PIF files. I don't know if you all are familiar with what those are, but these are all style control panel editions. CPL files, that's what that is. Used to be that certain maybe piece of hardware, maybe a mouse or something, might stick a special CPL in the System32 folder for an applet to configure the buttons on the device or something like that. Just to give you an idea, SCR files are screensavers. PIF files are program information file. It's an old style Windows 3.1, basically MS-DOS shortcut. I don't really see many people using that in this day and age, although I did have a customer mention that, so that they were using an niche application with that. If you're unsure and you think your users might need to access it, we recommend the suspicious filtering. But if you don't want to if you want to block all of them, certainly constant is an option as well. And this is an either or thing. It's not gonna you can't check them all, as you can see. And then the notifications options. I recommend the no running anyway. I don't. I mean, I do kind of recommend checking this one, the no run anyway prompt, because you don't want your users to bypass something that the filtering is blocking. But remember, this only affects the program filtering. This does not affect the software restriction policy. So if you're checking that to help to allow a software restriction policy, that is not how that operates. Software restriction policies cannot be overcome except through whitelisting. Silent blocking, that's a little rigid. If you check that, you're probably users are going to be a little bit weirded out by just something abruptly not running. So I don't see that being terribly useful, but take it into consideration. And then an email alert. Again, all related to program filterings. You will always get an email notification on a software restriction policy violation if you have the email notification set up. And speaking of that, this is where you enter in your email settings. Excuse me. Please note that you have to have enable email alerts checked. I have had people submit without having that checked. So please make sure you have that if you intend to use email alerts. And all this information here is required, except for this guy down here. That's the only one that's not required. So you will need to populate these fields. Now, there are a couple of exceptions. You have an open relays or other authentication things going on. It's possible you could leave some of these fields blank, but you'll want to be able to test it out in your environment. I recommend testing with the free version of CryptoPrevent. This 10-cent test sounds like a great way to test it, but it doesn't always, it's not always 100% reliable at confirming it. I've seen the send test succeed when in fact it would not otherwise. But if you set it out, if you again test it out with the free version of CryptoPrevent, you should be able to find your email settings that work correctly for your environment. To give you an example, Gmail might be something like this. That's maybe not a good example. You can probably have something like this set up.
Well, that would be smtp.gmail.com.
Oh, where's my server? Yeah, I'm sorry.
Not just blah there.
I thought I was confirming my password. My apologies. Yes, not just blah there. But to give you an idea, you want to put in your entire email address here, not just the me part. You want to have your server name there. And you guys get the idea. It's pretty straightforward. I did make a note of the license here. I didn't touch on the zip password. This is used to encrypt the zip file that we build for you on our server. Now, you will need that to unzip it, so you might want to put in there something other than the randomly generated one we provide, if for your convenience. But keep that in mind. And then the only thing that's left is the update settings, and you have so many options here. Basically, pick the time and whether or not you want to. Well, this just relates to XP, but if you want to restart after program updates. But at any rate, let's see. Covered everything. And then when you're finally done, this is the big one. When you're finally done, nobody knows what to do. They're looking for buttons apparently, or something else that they need to push. It's actually a menu choice right up here. See this?
Before you continue, just Remind everybody to check, double check your contact email to make sure there's no typos in it. Had a lot of those.
Oh, yeah, we do get that happen from time to time. Please, yeah, double check all the information before. Please double check that information before you submit, because we will basically blindly send it to the email that's up there. Also, double check your product key again, that it appears correctly. All of that will certainly speed things up with us getting it built correctly for you. And then you just go up here, you hit finalize and submit, and that will send it to us. Or if it fails, let's see. So you'll get it if there's an error, but if it fails, it will actually offer to attach the submission to an email. You can always attach and send it to sales@foolishit.com. We'll be happy to process it for you that way if there's some trouble with your network configuration that doesn't allow you to submit directly to us. I believe.
Oh, after they submit one, what happens?
Okay, so after you submit through here, we'll have to actually do the build for you. Now, that's not an immediate process. So if you don't see an email back after hitting the submit button immediately, it'll probably just need to wait a little while. Can take up to 24 hours, but during most business days, we'll typically have it built far less or far more quickly than that. But keep that in mind if you're planning or if you have any sort of deadlines for deployment. You want to make sure you have yours submitted to us a day in advance to guarantee it. We do builds on a first come, first served basis, and we can receive a large number of builds in a day. And so we want you to we want to get the information back to you, of course, in the quickest way we can. But we also have to accommodate all of our other customers as well with that. So please keep that in mind. And what you'll receive back when we do complete the build is an email containing a link to your installer, and you'll be able to download it at that point. Now, you absolutely need to download it and save it. We only keep your installers up there on the server, I believe, for a week. So, it will be removed at some point, and we might need to rebuild it for you if you contact us later than that. So the first thing you would want to do when you receive that email, the fulfillment email, is download your installer and then test it out. Make sure the settings are working for you as you desired. If you find any problems or want to make any adjustments, you can contact us back. We will consider the day of purchase, if you have a build, and then you come back the next day and resubmit, we'll understand. It's more than likely for testing. We can see the number of licenses you've deployed, though, so we know very well if you're testing or not with your clients. But once you actually start deploying with one, at that point, the testing is no longer valid, and we do charge the $25 for an additional installer. If you're concerned about that, you can always put the word test in the notes field there to communicate to us explicitly that this is intended for testing purposes. We'll be happy to accommodate that for you. Yeah, so I guess that's that.